just for everyone's sake, this is going to be a presentation on datapay. It is going to be a payment solution for Africa. We have a very broad vision for a payment solution for Africa, and specifically starting out from South Sudan and then working our way from there. We are at the early stages of this idea, and while doing research and kind of just trying to understand how the industry works, the fintech industry, we came across Mojaloop. And so we found out that Mojaloop is an open source software that enables these kinds of things, that addresses a lot of the interoperability issues around digital financial solutions and things like that. So we reached out to Mojaloop, and we have had several discussions with Kim Walters, as well as Simeon Orico from Mojaloop. And so today's meeting is, we were invited as a result of all those discussions we had. So moving on to the next slide, we will introduce ourselves, and I'm just going to start it off with Shalom. Shalom, you can go ahead. You are on mute, Shalom, you are on mute, I think.
All right, so if we can move it to slide 2, Moses.
Did everyone hear Shalom? I think he was on mute. We didn't get to hear you.
Yes, can you move it to slide 2, please? We are still on slide 1.
Right now it is on slide 2.
Okay. All right, well, so my name is Shalom, originally from Nigeria and live and work in Iowa, United States. And, you know, like Moses said, you know, we got into the conversation to Mojaloop through research. And so we're excited to present today.
And my name is Lomoro Manasseh, and I am originally from South Sudan, but I live and work here in Florida, United States. I am a software engineer at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. And my background is in chemistry, economics from Wadba College, the same school Shalom went to, and that's how we became friends. That's how we came to know ourselves. And I also attended high school in Costa Rica, United World College of Costa Rica. So is everyone able to see my screen?
I think you might be sharing the wrong screen.
Yeah.
We see the presentation, so we don't see that. We see the your PowerPoint. Yeah, so if you want to reshare your full screen presentation, that would be great.
I see, I see. Okay, so step 1 and then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh.
We got it now. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So this is going to be the overview of our presentation. Each one of us is going to share our brief experiences, which is the actual motivation for this, and then the vision, and then we will speak about the problem we are trying to hopefully get involved in addressing, and then also some brief discussion on South Sudan, and then we move on to existing solutions, and then our proposed solution, the progress we have done so far, and what our needs are. And then we'll allow some time for questions. So coming on to the motivation for this story, one of the main things that drives this idea is from our own experiences. And I am from South Sudan, like I said in my introduction, but I live here in the US, and my family lives back home. And so, as most of you know, the war in South Sudan has displaced most of the people. outside South Sudan. And so there is a lot of immigrants here in the US, in Canada, Australia, different parts of the world. And most of those people, it's either just one family member living abroad or two family members. Most of the family members are back home, and they rely on platforms that are able to allow them send money back and forth to their relatives back home so they can be able to help them. And so that has been a challenge. Most of the money transfer platforms do not prioritize South Sudan. And so that makes it very, very difficult for people from South Sudan to be able to send money. For example, here in Florida, if I want to be able to send money to help with my family back home, what I'm going to do is I use one platform called the Hapsil. And here in the US, the Hapsil is not in all the states. And so I'm gonna have to spend extra money sending the money from here to maybe, let's say, a state like Iowa where the Hapsil is there, and then have maybe a friend or someone send the money through the Hapsil to South Sudan. And also now the biggest thing too is within South Sudan, the Hapsil is not in all the cities. So the Hapsil is in the main city, in the capital city, Juba. And so if you have someone who is 100 miles away from Juba, this person is going to have to spend 2 days or more to be able to reach Juba and back, to go and get this money. And then, so this is a huge issue that excludes most of the people in South Sudan from the financial system. And so I am going to end there, and then I will hand it over to Shalom.
Yes, thanks, Moses. So, one of the, like in Moses' experience, one of the things I've also found in Nigeria, especially in the rural parts of Nigeria, is that, there is a massive cost to, people who are unbanked, right? So for example, I did like a volunteer year of service in Nigeria, in rural Nigeria. And one of the things that I found was that, actually, let me step back a bit. So the year of volunteer service involved a stipend from the federal government of Nigeria to all volunteers. And so we essentially received our money directly from the federal government into our bank accounts. But the problem is that where I was serving in rural Nigeria was extremely very far. It was, I think, average of about 3 hours from the city. So what would happen is that every single time we essentially spent about 10% of the stipend we got from the government to travel into the city and back to cash out, right, to withdraw the money. So that was my own personal experience. And then I also observed that in the community that I worked in locally, a lot of people who were, they had small businesses and, either, they had small businesses or they were into farming. The way that they saved the money was also unorganized and informal. And so what would happen is that they sort of organized someone locally from the village or the community to, take money from them daily or weekly. And then that person now is the one responsible for taking all of those collective monies, traveling about, 3 hours into the city to deposit the money or withdraw the money on their behalf. So as you can see, there's a huge cost, especially, there's a huge cost to the unbanked, especially those in rural, in the rural parts, especially in Nigeria. So that has been my experience. So next slide, Moses, please.
Yes.
Yeah, so as a result of this motivation, really what we are trying to do, the broad vision we are trying to do essentially is access and enablement, right? So our goal is to enable financial access for people in Africa and to enable the unbanked to essentially get ahead, based on some of those limitations or constraints. Yeah, so, like we sort of shared from our experiences, the main issue really is that, there's a lot of people who are unbanked and underbanked. And one interesting statistic we found from the Global Findex database was that in Africa or sub-Saharan Africa, we have about 66% of adults who are unbanked, right? And you know, a lot of the, I mean, there were many reasons for this based on the you know, on the global database, and there were three main ones that sort of resonated with us. One was distance to financial institutions, like in our own experience, like traveling several hours into the city to, you know, pick up money or to drop off money, right? And the other was a lack of enough money to even start or open a bank account. And of course, in addition to that, there's also the documentation involved, right? A lot of people don't have, like, you know, national identity card or passports, international passports, for example, which are some of the requirements to open banks. And so as a result, you know, you have this massive number of people who don't have banks. And as a result, they are excluded from some of the benefits of banking, right? So you have like money transfer, right? So in my experience, or Moses' experience, like, so we had to essentially travel all the way to the city for several hours to pick up money. And so that meant that if we wanted to transfer money to a friend or a sibling or a relative, we couldn't have done it. We had to every time travel down to the bank to do that, right? And, you know, there was also the issue of borrowing and savings. And so all of those costs is essentially what we are trying to cancel out or minimize. You know, so a specific example, like Moses said, was, you know, in South Sudan. And, you know, for example, in South Sudan, a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of costs associated with sending money. I mean, for South Sudanese abroad, sending money back home, right? And Moses will talk a little bit about that.
Yep, thank you, Shalom. So kind of to just give a brief background on that, I am from South Sudan, and so this is just some brief statistics about that. The capital city for South Sudan is Juba, and as some of you may know, South Sudan became independent recently in 2011. It used to be just one country, Sudan, you know, and it's a really very, very small country with about 10.5 million people, and majority of those people live in the rural areas. And, you know, some are obviously displaced from there because of the war there. The currency is the South Sudan pounds, and the economy is mostly underdeveloped, and poverty is widespread. And so as well, because as a result of this underdevelopment, you find that there is only 2% of paved roads. So most of the roads are really in very terrible conditions. And that is one of the reasons why, if someone has to travel to Juba, maybe to be able to pick a remittance that a friend sent to them or stuff like that, this person, because the road does not exist, this person is going to take really long time to be able to get there. And so 80% of the GDP is from oil. And so we find that most of the people rely on, about 20% of the people rely on remittances and things like that. And so just the bigger picture there is that, you know, most of the people, number one, because of the war and all of these things, even formal financial institutions like banks and all these things are not motivated to go and be able to put branches in many parts of the country, and so they usually would concentrate in the bigger city, Juba. Even if you are to send money directly to a bank account, it would take a long time, and then secondly, it would go to Juba. So still, this person is going to have to travel from wherever they are to Juba, the main capital. And so this is just to give a sense of where it is located in Africa. There is just a small green dot on the map of Africa here, or on the left. And then on on the right, that is where Juba is located. And so you see that, people are going to have to travel hundreds of miles from a place like Raja all the way to the west to come all the way down to Juba, which is very, very far away. So these are some of the challenges that this solution aims to address. And so remittance options to South Sudan. Currently here in the US, like I said before, one option is for our people to be able to send money, not only here in the US to South Sudan, but even also Canada, Australia, Europe, and many parts. They use the regular banking system. The issue with the regular banking system is that it's not instant, so it's going to take several days. It's definitely not conducive for emergency situations, like I would normally get a phone call about maybe someone being sick who will need immediate attention. And so if I use the bank, it's going to take very, very long time to get the money there. And then apart from that, even, you're going to send it into a bank. And so that other bank usually have their own fees in addition to the fees that you're going to have to pay to the bank here. And then when it gets back home, there is going to be withdrawal fees that the recipient is going to have to pay. And then also the fact that they have to travel those long distances to Juba to be able to withdraw this money. So that is a real hassle. And so you find that not many people use this option to be able to send money. And then there is the non-bank options, like the electronic money transfer platforms like WorldRemit and SendWave and Zoom and others. So most of these do not operate in South Sudan. And so most of the people will not be able to use it. Also, another thing also associated with some of this is that, usually, like sometimes I would send money to a friend in Uganda using SendWave, and the issue is that it's going to be delivered in the local currency at bank rates. And so because it is at a bank rate, the people are going to get less. In addition to, on that side, the recipient is going to be charged to pay money to withdraw this one. And so at the end of the day, really, they end up receiving less of the remittance. And so that is again, not helpful, because next week, the other week comes around, and then I'm going to receive another phone call too. Money has run out and they still need some assistance again. And so now the last option there is the non-electronic. So this one, we have a platform that the people use a lot, which I said earlier in the presentation, is called Dahab Sale. And so this Dahab Sale is run by, I think, that by people from Somalia. And so this one, the issue with them is that it's not so much online. You have to drive to a store and then to maybe a branch or something like that, deposit the money there, and then they will send it to the recipient in South Sudan. And so the issue with this is that it's not in all the states here in the US, as well as back home, it's not in all the cities. It's only in Juba, the main city. And so there is issues both ways. And the model that they do have is that, they charge the sender their transfer fee, and then they deliver the hard currency the way it is to the recipient. And so the recipient will actually receive US dollar, and then they will now go and exchange it at rates that they are comfortable with. And usually that is the one thing that most of our people prefer, and because they want to be able to have their person receive the dollar so that they can exchange at higher rate and not have to call them next week and things like that for more money. So they can hopefully be able to keep most of it. And so that is that bit there. We are going to go to our solution, which is datapay. So Shalom will speak on that.
Yeah, so thanks, Moses. So like Moses said, it's just a huge financial cost to the lack of presence in South Sudan, or lack of access for the unbanked. in Africa in general, right? And so what we're trying to do is to close that gap or contribute in closing that gap. And one of the things that, one of the visions that, we're still conceptualizing is the idea of datapay, which is like a virtual bank for Africa, a mobile virtual bank, big picture, right? And so the way it's going to work is that it's going to be a simple mobile app where, is going to be a simple mobile app where all the transactions happen within that ecosystem of the app, right? So, but, unlike the bank, what will happen is, all of the costs to distance, documentation, some of those initial hurdles or barriers that the unbanked face, all of those will essentially go away with an app, right? Because, as we know, mobile apps, mobile phones, right? There's a high penetration of mobile phones across Africa generally. So the goal is to take advantage of that to solve the problem. So, yep, it's going to be a mobile app that's downloadable to enable peer-to-peer transfer. And so what that means is that users can transfer, money to and from anyone within the app, right? So just like Moses said, in regards to remittances, right? What we're looking at is having those in major currencies, especially the currencies that people in Africa deal with, like like the dollar, the euro, or the Chinese yen, or the pounds. And the other thing that we're also looking to have is a system where it's multi-currency, right? So what that means is, for example, somebody in Nigeria can buy, let's say, buy a shoe from someone in South Sudan, right? They buy in Naira and then the seller gets paid in South Sudanese pounds. Or, for example, someone in Ghana can buy in cedis and then the seller gets paid in Chinese yen. So those are one of the functionalities that we're hoping to institute. And then, of course, the other benefits would be that essentially the big picture really is that all the benefits that an actual bank has, such as loan, money transfer, borrowing, insurance, bill payments, things like that, would essentially be what we do as well as a virtual bank. So yeah, we'll be able to give loans, credit lines, based on people's financial history people's financial history, or either through many remittance or other indicators.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, I know we have spoken a lot about South Sudan and things like that, but from our experiences when we were speaking, Salom spoke about the challenges people also face in rural Nigeria, even though Nigeria is a huge country where most of these, some of these money transmittance platforms actually reach, but you find that there are still those in the rural parts of Nigeria are still excluded from this formal financial system. And so just drawing on our bigger picture, even though we are going to start out from South Sudan, but the bigger picture is that most of the people in the rural areas are excluded, and so they do not have access to ways of how they can manage their savings, how they'll be able to get credit, maybe investment loans to start some small businesses and things like that. And most of those loans they would need really are not huge amounts of money. Someone wanted to just start something small, maybe farming or whatever. It's going to take small amount of money really for this person to be able to borrow. But the issue is they are not able to get that from the formal banks. Not one, because of the distance issue, and two, because of the complicated collateral requirements and things like that. And so, like Salom said earlier, they result into some kinds of informal ways of doing savings at the rural level, collecting the money, giving it to one person to hold it and stuff like that. So, like he said, mobile phones are everywhere. And so if we can digitize this thing so that it can be able to reach as many people as possible even in the remotest parts of Africa, that will be a great solution. And that is why we are excited about this, hopefully, a multi-currency virtual bank. Back to you, Salam.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and then, you know, the other, like we talk about with payments, where people can, you know, earn wages directly to their, to their mobile app. People can make, so essentially payments in general, right?
Yes.
Can, and one of the things that I'm also aware of is that right now through the current system of mobile wallets, I believe, payments essentially is happening through short code. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is just sort of innovate around that to see how people can actually make payments in person through QR code, right? So you don't have the inconvenience of actually having to type in, just the general inconvenience in general. With the with the QR code, what we'll have to do is essentially whip out your phone at, when you are in the marketplace, you're going to buy an item, you whip up your phone and essentially you scan the QR code of the seller and then you make payments, right? So it's essentially the big picture for the payment angle. And then the other one we're also looking at is, datapay ATI, to be the API, the application programmable interface, to be integrated for businesses, for government, so that, payments can happen, right? So business to business, consumer to business, and all the different permutations of that, as well as for government.
Yes. And this is kind of just to give a visual representation of what we have spoken so far. And so this is going to be what it would look like. Like Salom said, it would be a mobile app, a downloadable mobile app. And so in the center here, this circle in the center is one user, for example, that has downloaded the datapay app, the one in the yellow. And so this person, in his app, he would have access to several things. So first of all, he would have just the regular way that if you open a bank account with any bank, you'd have a checking account, savings account, and things like that. And so this person, their checking account would be the wallet. And so they would also be able to have a savings account. And then they would also we will also enable a functionality where they will be able to exchange currency if they want to do that. And so how do they fill in their wallet? How does money get onto their wallets, on their phones? And so one of the ways is remittances. And if they do have a bank account, for those that live in the cities and stuff like that, they can be able to bring in money from their bank, load it into their mobile wallet, and from their mobile wallet, they will also be able to send money into their bank. And then for people working, let's say, someone is working, doing some construction work or doing anything like that for a neighbor, for a business, for anything, so they're receiving wages, potentially these people could just also receive their payments through this app into their wallet. And then they can also, get some from their mobile money accounts. For those that do have that, they can also be able to fill their wallet that way, or from their debit cards, they can be able to fill their money that way. And for those in the rural areas that maybe don't have access to some of these things, one of the things we are looking into doing is utilize retail shops in the different locations, so that those retail shops, maybe will come up with ways of how you can become an agent, is that, they can go there, maybe deposit money into the retail shop, and the retail shop refills their wallet. And they can also come to the retail shop agent for their cash pickup needs and things like that. So since this would be like a payment platform, really, this person would be able to also go to the grocery store, like we see here to the very top right. He will be able to go to the grocery store, buy something, use the datapay app, and then the store owner would have a QR code there. And so this person will just, instead of using the shortcut and then dialing several number of steps on the phone, listening to steps on their ears and then selecting it, which is a great thing. Sometimes it may not work for maybe some of the older population. So just giving them a simple optimization around that, where they can simply scan a QR code, and then the shop owner's information auto-populates, and then they can be able to kind of send the money that way. So that is an option, like Salom said, that we are also having. And then the loans. So from datapay, if they have any school fees needs, let's say for their children, and they really don't have the money, they want to be able to get access to maybe very short-term loans, they can also be able to do that, or investment loans, they can be able to do that. So we see that there are several things here. And so we are not going to be able to like start out with these things all at the same time. It will be way too broad. So we focus with, first of all, the remittances highlighted in blue, and then kind of work our way that way. So try to understand the system, how things work and stuff like that, and then start working on some of these functionalities one by one. So as part of this, also in the back end, what we want to be able to do is do some analytics, so that, you know, the UI, the user interface of the app to the user himself or herself will have some really useful information for them. You know, like we see here in this picture, they will be able to monitor their spending and how their, you know, their income is and things like that. So they will have all of these visual representations that will be really, really helpful for them. As well as also for us managing the platform, we want to be able to have some data analytics being collected, so that, you know, some of our financial service products that we intend to offer, we can use this data that we collect from the users, like their financial history, their payment history and things like that, to determine kind of credit worthiness, to see if we can extend them some loans and things like that. So that is another feature of the app that will be really, really helpful, that we are looking forward to also integrating. And then, so this is going to be the progress, which I'm going to have Salom speak on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Moses. Yeah, so far, you know, like we said, you know, the vision is a multi-currency mobile wallet, virtual mobile wallet, mobile bank. But the goal really is to essentially start off with the remittance aspect, right, for South Sudan, which is where our focus is, right? So what have we been doing so far? So far, essentially what we've been doing is research, right? Trying to research and learning, trying to understand the regulatory environment on both sides, right? In the United States and back home in South Sudan, right? And also trying to figure out partnerships, right? Like what are the third-party partnerships that who are the companies, or who are the players, right, in that financial space that can power some of the back end of what we intend to do, of our solution, right? So in the US, for example, one of the things that we found around the licensing is that you have to get a license, you know, across states in the United States, right? But one of the things that you can do, as you know, towards that end, is something they call a sandbox, right? So the sandbox is really like a 2-year testing system for money services businesses that would enable them to sort of test and figure out details before the state government actually provides them with the actual licenses for them to continue business. So that's for what we have found so far for the license piece, right? And for the technology piece, you know, like we said, we learned about Moja Loop, and of course, through some of those conversations and research, we learned about GSMA, Muwali, MFS Africa, right? And, you know, we believe that, you know, some of these technologies could be useful in helping us, you know, get things going. And, you know, for partnerships specifically, we actually have, you know, a commercial bank back in South Sudan that is, you know, the founder, the owner of the bank, you know, we have spoken with him and he's very excited about our concept, especially the remittance piece. And, you know, so yeah, he's essentially willing and, you know, he's willing and excited to work with us to get this off the ground, right? So I'll just touch briefly on what we have for the remittance piece. We have sort of done a prototype for that. And I think Moses has that open somewhere.
Let's see if I can pull it up and hopefully not take so much time. This thing is in there.
And, you know, one of the things that, you know, I guess was helpful for us is some of the design principles of Modulo, right? So all of those, most of those principles anyway, has been factored into this design and our prototype for our remittance piece, right? So I'm sorry.
Can you see it? Can you see it, Salam?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But I think you can maximize your screen so that.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe I am not sharing. No, I am, but.
Okay, well, I guess, yeah, we can work with what we have.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is essentially our prototype, right? And then on the left-hand side, you can see some of the basic functionalities like home, what are the sending limits, how it works, and settings, right? And some of these elements there, you know, sort of speak to some of the design principles. So for example, sending limit, we know we have to have a limit so that, you know, we sort of, you know, follow the international guidelines to prevent or minimize you know, bad actors, you know, for example, people who are trying to do money laundering or financing some bad, you know, bad things, right? So yeah, essentially, if you go ahead, you know, so one of the first things they do is that they go ahead and log in, and then when Moses clicks on login, this is what pops up. They put in information around, you know, their email, create an account essentially.
Yes.
And then, yep. Well, I'm sorry, register is to create account, sorry about that. So with registration, they create the account, and this essentially captures information about who they are. Yep, there we go. So what's their name and phone number, things like that. And then once they have been able to create an account, then they now, the next time they come here, they'll be, you know, they'll go ahead and just log in. And then most of that data will be saved already so that they don't have to, you know, put it in again. And then they go ahead and, you know, choose the country they want to send to. So say, for example, they want to send to South Sudan or Uganda. Yeah, sure. And then they go ahead and get started. And then, yeah, they can go ahead and create a new recipient.
Yes.
Go ahead and create a new recipient. They put in the information. And then once they are done, it saves it and stores that, so they don't have to do that. And then it also tells them, so this is also, I guess, one of the transparency piece, so that they know who they are sending to at every instant of time and how much it's costing them to send, right? And then for, yep. And then their method of payment, they can go ahead and select whether they want to use debit card or whether they want to go directly to their bank account. If they want to change, they can go ahead and add a new either a new bank account or a new debit card. And then of course, confirm the details. So this is just to give you a general sense of what we are thinking anyways for the remittance solution for South Sudan.
Right. So just like Shalom said, sorry, I couldn't get it to appear really big. So this is simply just a draft design, which on the mobile version that we have, which is a lot of screens actually, it's modified and it looks way different than this, and it's more work have been done there. And so this one also, we're just working on improving it. And then once we know exactly the technology that we'll be using, development would start, and it will just be mostly development and getting it, you know, hopefully launched here very soon. And this is the last piece that Salome will talk on, and then we'll take questions.
So, you know, essentially these are our needs, and this is where we are really hoping to get some feedback on, you know, like information around, partnerships around payments, right? So financial payment gateways, or mobile network operators, and essentially people who are in the development space who have experience with integrating either the finance or the mobile network operators APIs, and building on that. So yeah, I think this is the piece that, you know, this is the other piece that we're also sort of struggling on and trying to figure out. I mean, obviously we don't have all the answers. You know, like you said, you know, these are issues that are personal to us, and you know, our first step was to essentially just research, to learn, and you know, and we're still learning, you know. So
Yes, yes. So yeah, thank you, Shalom. Just as Shalom said, this is definitely an area where we are open to feedback and things like that. And we just keep an open mind on that. We are happy to, you know, get any feedback. If some things we are thinking them not in the right way, we are happy to get those so we can improve on them and work on them and things like that. But yes, this is the greater vision. You have all been a great audience listening, and we thank you for that. So if there are any questions, this is going to be the time. Or there is also a link to the discourse. This session is posted on there, and so anyone can go there and leave us feedback. We will get instant notifications, and we'll be able to go on there and see, and then hopefully respond if it needs any response. Thank you so much once again for the opportunity to present in this conference. And for all of you listening, we will hand it over to Simeon at this point. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lomoro and Shalom. Anand had a question. I did post it on Discourse, but I'll allow her to voice it, and perhaps you can answer that. Anand, go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much, Simeon. Great presentation, Lomoro and Shalom. We've obviously spoken a few days ago. So yes. I just wanted to, and let me congratulate you once again on what I think is a brilliant vision for a part of the world that is not being served by appropriate and adequate financial services. The question I had was, there are two existing mobile money services, at least licensed. They have been granted a license in South Sudan. And just because you've got such great local insight, I wanted to know whether you had an understanding of why they have not scaled their agent network to rural areas, because it looks like the main problem is that customers are having to travel to Juba to collect remittances. So that is problem number one, that the agent network is not widespread. So there are players who have got a license. Why is that agent network not working? And secondly, you know, why have they not tied up with the right players for those remittance services to be more affordable? And the reason I'm asking this question is because perhaps in the answers to those questions, you will find what these existing services are not doing well and where datapay could perhaps differentiate themselves. So yeah, just a question really to increase my own knowledge of whether you're aware of these existing services and why do you think they're not filling the gap that you clearly identified in that market? Thank you.
Right. Thank you for the question, and definitely good feedback. I am aware of the Hapsil and not aware of any other ones that are maybe apart from the Hapsil. And so this is something we will go back and research and see if we can be able to find out exactly. But you brought up a very good point too, is in like the reasons why they haven't been able to scale to rural areas and stuff like that. I can give my sense of what I think the issue could be, which is probably mostly what we have already spoken about already. So the distance issue and just maybe the fact that it's not electronic, so maybe the recipients are gonna have to go to an actual, let's see, to an actual branch or something like that in the big city for them to be able to cash the money. And so maybe this could be one of the issues. So if we can digitize it so that, you know, and make the process as diversified as possible in terms of like reaching to the rural areas, maybe establishing local agents there so that, you know, most of the thing would happen digitally through the phones. And if they need to pick up actual cash, they would maybe go to a local agent or something like that. Maybe that is an area, that's something that we could do. But like I say, I will not know the exact reasons why they haven't scaled it to the rural areas like that. It is something that we are happy to look into. And like you said, maybe we'll get some you know, answers to some of the questions we might have. Definitely, thank you for that.